Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of TomGirl, where we talk all things sports, entertainment, fashion, and adventure. And today we have a very juicy one for you guys. I have author of Eat, Pray, Fuck My Life, Gabrielle Stone. Stay tuned.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Hope you had a great 4th of July. I am so fired up because the book I read all break was yours, Gabrielle Stone. Author of Eat, Pray, Fuck My Life.
Fuck my life.
Welcome. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I just have to tell you, I thought the book was so fun. I love your voice. I love your writing style. I love how true and honest was it, how honest it is. How did you choose to really keep that honesty and that truth in this book?
So the book kind of happened to me, if you will. I was married for almost 2 years, found out my husband of a year and a half was having an affair with a 19-year-old for 6 months, filed for divorce, left shortly after, met a man, fell madly in love with each other, and he convinced me to go on a grand romantic month-long trip to Italy. 48 hours before we were getting on a plane, he told me he had to go by himself, and I was absolutely devastated, but I had a decision to make, and that was either stay at home and be heartbroken or go travel Europe for a month by myself. So I took a backpack with no plans and went and did 7 countries by myself. And when it all kind of fell apart and I decided I was going to write a book, I was like, well, there's no fucking reason to leave out anything in this. I might as well be brutally honest and raw and let people see my vulnerability, because that's how other people are going to connect and heal from it.
When did you decide you wanted to write the book?
The day that I found out I was going by myself. Xavier, who's the man who dumped me before Europe, I remember he and I had a conversation, and he's like, how are you feeling, Gabs? And I was like I'm about to go on a journey of Eat, Pray, Fuck My Life. And there's the title. So I bought a leather-bound journal and brought it with me on my trip. I started writing the first day that I was in London. And it wasn't journaling. I mean, it was chapter 1. And if you put the book next to the journal, it's the same. So I really wrote 3/4 of it on my Europe trip and then finished it when I came home and transferred it into my computer.
That's amazing as a writing process, though, because lots of times you are taking notes, or you're just and then having to go back and try to relive the moments, which is probably why in this book we all feel like we are right there with you in the moments when you're meeting different people and having different experiences.
Yeah, because I was writing it as it happened. So, for example, I was in Paris and then took a train to Barcelona, and that was a 6-hour train ride where I just wrote about the previous days that had happened. So yeah, I was writing about it as it took place. The only things I went back to then later write about was the beginning chapter about, the divorce happening and my ex-husband, as well as when Javier and I initially fell in love. I wrote that all when I came home from my trip.
How did you get through, let's start back towards the beginning.
Yes.
You're talking about like the divorce. So you're married, you find out he's having an affair, and that's a lot you could just shut down or, quit at those times. How did you kind of pull yourself through those moments and find your strength?
I consider myself very lucky because although I did not find this out until later in my relationship with Javier, I was never in love with my husband. I loved him, but I think I married him because he was safe. And so when I found out about the divorce, I really felt a huge sense of relief. When I drove away from the house, I was like, this is happening for a reason. I dodged a fucking bullet, or as I like to say, an army of snipers. And I really knew that it was happening for a greater purpose. Because I wasn't heartbroken, it was more of betrayal and rage that I was feeling. I didn't put up a lot of walls around my heart, and I was weirdly okay. I remember my mom and my friends being like, why are you so fine? Like, all this, your life just literally fell apart in front of you. Why are you so okay? And I just kind of knew that this was my divine path that I was supposed to be on.
So then you open up and you're able to then fall in love.
Yeah.
And then with Javier.
Hard.
Yeah.
So hard. We went out. I had gone on 2 dates casually with him prior to even knowing my ex-husband. So 6-7 years ago. And it had always just been casual. Like, we went out, we danced, we made out, we had fun, and that was it. So when we connected on Instagram, as all things happen, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go out with this hot Latin man and go have a good time. Like, why not? I'm single. Like, let's do it. And I was not in a million years expecting to fall madly in love with him. And it was so instant. Like, the first night we went out was just like, oh, shit, this is happening for both of us. And yeah, you know, I just trusted in the universe that whatever was being put in front of me that was so intense was what I was supposed to be doing. So no reservations, jumped head first.
And then talk about the moment when it switched for you, that 48 hours before your trip.
Yeah,
And
when everything went to shit. So, you know, a little bit of backstory on him is he lost a member of his family a year and a half before. I think when he fell in love with me, a lot of the grief that he had pushed down kind of opened up. And I was devastated. He broke my heart in a way that my ex-husband could have never done if he tried. And I remember just hysterically crying on my bed. And my mom came in and she was like so angry because she saw her little girl being broken for a second time. And this was all in the span of like 2 months. And I just knew in that moment, I was like, I have to go by myself. Because, like, what am I going to do? Sit at home and cry and, like, see him going gallivanting around Italy? Like, no. And Europe had always been on my bucket list. So after we had the initial conversation where he told me he thought he needed to go by himself, we were like, okay, let's talk about it tomorrow and, like, reassess everything. He came and picked me up and we had a long conversation about it. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to go too. And he was really happy to hear that. I think part of him was like, oh, thank God she's not going to be at home crying. Yeah. And part of him was, you know, thankful that I had stuff to go work on too.
So talk about packing up that backpack. And you said you've always been a planner and plan things. And now you're going on this trip with no itinerary, no plan.
Yeah. So, yeah, my friends make fun of me that, like, I plan weeks ahead for our nights out. They're always awesome because of that. But yeah, I'm a huge planner. And so this was literally everything out of my comfort zone. I had traveled by myself before, but always to go to a film set, to go shoot, or, you know, to go meet other people that were in the place I was flying to, never to do a trip by myself. And never with a freaking backpack, mind you, like luggage, you know. So this was, every element was so far out of my comfort zone. So I packed my bag. I did end up packing for like warm romantic Italy and ended up going to 7 countries, not all that were super warm. But yeah, I mean, I packed my bag. Javier and his dad picked me up from my house, drove us to the airport. And he and I flew next to each other on a plane all the way to London. And then I stayed in London to start my trip and he went on to Rome like our tickets were initially booked for. And everybody's always like, oh my God, that must have been so freaking awkward. And it really, for whatever reason, wasn't. Like, we were still very connected and had a lot of love for each other. It just, we weren't kissing and holding hands. And I was devastated, but, you know, that's a side note.
And then, so you go on this trip. There's so many great characters and people that you meet inside the book in different stops. Maybe tell everybody about a few of those.
Oh,
or
God.
Some of the experiences.
So the first stop, thankfully, was in London, and my best friend from high school, her name, I have to always like think because she's one of my current best friends, so I have to be like, what's her name in the book? Not her real name. Emma lives in London, and she was my best friend in high school, and so I had at least a home base to start, thank God, because I literally didn't even have time to book anything if I wanted to. So I met her in London, stayed with her and her boyfriend, and that was my first, you know, stop of the trip. And I didn't book any destinations until I was in wherever I was at. So when I was in London, like 3 days in, I was like, okay, where am I going next? Amsterdam, and booked the ticket to Amsterdam. Not till I was in Amsterdam did I book Paris. So it was very solo travel to the max. Like, I went all in. As far as other characters, I mean, obviously everybody loves Chris, who I met in Barcelona, and he was the first person that really kind of helped me heal in a way. He really opened my eyes up to a lot of things that I deserve and helping me see situations from a different perspective. And I have a lot of fond memories with him and everybody. I've gotten so many messages. It's like Team Chris. Everybody like loves him and wants to know about what happened after. And he's a really, really great guy. And so I know that's one of everybody's favorites. And then there were, a lot of the people in Barcelona I'm still close friends with and still talk to. Mallory, who I met in Barcelona, has sent me postcards from Australia and Vietnam and her travels oh God, Jason. I'm like, name in the book, not the real name. Not that half of them care, but Jason, who I met randomly in the red light district in Amsterdam, who then invited me to go meet him in Mykonos. We became really good friends. I've seen him probably 3 or 4 times since we've been back. And he doesn't live here. Whenever he comes into town, we hang out because, it's great. I met a lot of really amazing people that I've been able to keep solid relationships with.
Would you say you definitely recommend then people to just take solo trips and have an open schedule like that?
100%. I never in a million years would have booked a month-long trip by myself. I would have gone with a girlfriend or a significant other, but never by myself. And I am so thankful that this happened to me the way that it did. Everyone should go solo travel. It literally changes you as a person because when you're with a friend, you have that like comfort and that security blanket. When you're by yourself and you walk into a new hostel, like you're forced to go talk to people and you're forced to not only show up, but show up as your authentic self. Like nobody has time for the bullshit layers that people put over us when we normally meet someone and like do this, hi, I'm presenting what I want you to see. It's very just everybody's themselves. And it's so nice to not have to weed through the bullshit. And it really makes you look at yourself and gives you time to be like, okay, what different things do I need to work on? And what different things are coming up for me that I have this time alone? And we're never really alone. Like I spent a lot of time writing and a lot of time sitting by myself in cafes. I took myself to dinner in Rome and got drunk by myself. But I met so many people along the way, and there were so many people back home like cheering me on and rooting for me. You're never really alone, but to go and like have that space and that time to be with yourself, I think is really scary, but whenever things are scary, that's when we should do them because that's where the growth happens.
I loved reading a lot of things that you talk about learning about yourself along the way, and I think it's a lot of things that many women and men reading the book can relate to.
I've been surprised how many men have I mean, obviously when I wrote this, my demographic was like any woman that's been in love ever or like to travel. But I've gotten so many messages from guys about like, oh my God, I had a Javier in my life, or oh my God, I connected so much with this and this. And I was like, wow, okay, good for you guys. Like, yay for the men.
We shouldn't stereotype, right?
Yeah,
they go
not
through
at all.
Heartbreak and cheating
I love
and all that
it
as well.
Yeah, and like learn some shit, guys.
Let's talk about a few of the things you learned and you talk about. One of them is about learning about selfless love. That being a different kind of love that you experienced before.
Yeah. So I don't really believe that I was fully in love until I had that relationship with Javier. I think I had been close to it. I think I had been in lust. I think I had loved people very deeply, but I don't think I was ever in like a full-blown, oh, this is it. And then halfway through the trip, because we were still in communication, kind of going back and forth, like, are we going to see each other? Are we not going to see each other? Because we're both traveling around Europe. Halfway through that, we had a really big conversation. And I remembered him looking at me and going, when I see that you're hurting, I just want to push aside all the stuff I'm dealing with so I can take care of you. And I was like, no, that's the last thing I want. The best thing you can do, not for me, because how much I love you and care about you, is to go deal with your shit and heal yourself. And that was the first moment that I was like, oh my God, I care about this person so much more than I care about myself. Because in the past, when I was younger, it would have been like, no, like, for the love of God, come take care of me and make me feel better, Jesus. But it really was like that, it clicked that was like, oh, this is like that next level of what people talk about. And I was experiencing it so clearly. I think the only time I had ever experienced that before on a lesser scale was with, my mom and people that you really are like, oh no, this person's heart is more important than mine right now. But I had never felt that with a man before.
One of the other things you did through the book that I loved is the thought onion.
Yeah.
Can you explain to people what the thought onion is?
So the thought onion is my kind of way of figuring out what's at the root of your reactions and beliefs. So you think of it like an onion, and the outer layer is the artificial thought, which is kind of like, superficial thought, which is when you're first having that reaction, it's like the immediate thought that your brain goes to, which is usually extremely superficial. Like, oh, that guy's an asshole. Like, that's the superficial thought. And then when you peel that back, the next layer is the authentic thought. And that's kind of like, okay, what's driving that? Why am I having that reaction? What's underneath that layer? And then when you peel that back, the subconscious thought is like the real meat and potatoes, where the big stuff is. And whenever you get to that level, you can really be like, oh, I'm having this reaction because of this deep-rooted belief in my life. And it's not until we recognize those that we can actually start to heal them. And it's crazy that when you start to become aware of them and like bring them into your conscience, that we can not only heal them, but we start having different reactions. And it's huge.
When did you start doing that yourself?
I started in London, literally when I started writing about it. I just gave it a name. And it really, those parts in the book, I remember when my editor was going through the book with me, she was like, oh my God, every time we get to a thought onion, I'm so excited, because it's really the work that you're doing. Because as fun as this book is, you know, it's literally like a ridiculous Netflix show that you're watching, although you're reading. But there's a lot of really valid self-help and self-love and healing techniques sprinkled throughout. And so many people have been like, oh my God, this is literally a healing book, but it's not in your face and boring. It's like awesome and fun. So I was really glad that I could kind of marry those two together, because, you know, nobody likes to be beaten over the head with, here's how to heal. Yeah. Here's what you should read up on.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, and that's how I read it too. And actually, when you said Netflix, are you right so descriptively, vividly? Like, I could see it. Like, I saw it like I was watching it as a show. Yeah. But yeah, I like that too, because I think I could relate to a lot of the things that you talked about. And you know, when I was younger too, I know I would initially have that first initial superficial thought, and your brain can just go just like crazy when you just let it go run wild with all those strange thoughts.
Because we're human. That's what we do. We like to overanalyze everything. But if you can take a step back and be like, okay, I know I have this tool to kind of be like 1, 2, 3. Once you get to that deep rooted issue, it really like opens up a lot about who you are.
I think another issue that men and women might relate to in the book is when you talk about, your fear of being alone because of losing your father, then losing your boyfriend at a young age. I mean, any advice to other people who may have be going through that same fear of being alone or losing people?
Go travel Europe for a month by yourself. No, I'm just kidding. Since I was a little girl and my father passed at age 6, I have had a deep-rooted fear of being alone. And then when my boyfriend was killed when we were 18, it was again like ripped wide open, that abandonment, like I don't want to be alone. And that played out in my life as like always having a boyfriend, always needing a man in my life, always having friends over, always having a roommate. I was never really alone with myself. And I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason. Usually you can't see that until you're a little further away from it. But the moment Xavier told me he had to go by himself, I went, oh, this is literally the universe delivering a way for me to go face that shit head on. And because it had been the biggest issue I had had my entire life. So doing the Europe trip, doing all the work on myself that I did, and like really, writing the book and coming to all these realizations about myself, you really get to a point where you realize you're never really alone. And I have severe abandonment issues. Like, they run deep. I deal with them daily. But when you can get to a place where you realize I'm never going to fucking abandon myself, then it kind of, you're like, oh, okay. So even if these people shit on me and leave and like plug me into my abandonment issues, I know that I'm here for myself. And that was the first thing that kind of made me turn a new leaf to this whole process.
Self-love is a big thing in the book too, which you just started to kind of go on to. So tell me about what you've discovered about self-love and loving yourself.
I was literally, everybody's always told me you have to love yourself first, and loving yourself is the most important thing, and you have to do that before you can love someone else. And I was like sitting there going, okay, cool, I'm ready to do that. How the fuck am I supposed to do that? And nobody could give me a clear set of instructions. And I'm like, guys, I'm an actress. Like, give me direction. I can follow it. But nobody could explain it to me in a way that I could consciously grasp it. So I had been searching for this the whole entire trip. And I got to be honest, as I write in the book, I didn't put this all together on my trip. That's why the self-love cocktail, as I call it, because obviously I have to equate it to some type of wine, that's why it's in the epilogue, because I really didn't have that aha moment and discover it on the trip. I learned little parts of it that I then came home and was able to put together. So I call it the self-love cocktail. What it is you sit down and you write out a list of things that you're capable of giving your soul that you love. So for me, that was meditating, going to the gym, eating healthy, dancing, creating. And once you have your list together, you commit to giving yourself some of those things on the list every single day. So at first it'll be a stiffer cocktail like a vodka martini, and it'll be like, okay, all I can muster up to do is go to the gym and eat healthy. And you commit to giving yourself that every single day. And then once you get a little more comfortable with that, you add in like a splash of meditating and a dash of creating, and it becomes a fancier margarita style cocktail. And you continuously practice on giving yourself this every single day. And then a month down the road, you wake up and you're like, oh shit, I feel a lot better, because that's literally loving yourself. It's quite simply, you have to give yourself things that make you happy, that your soul loves. And it was such a simple freaking concept to me once I heard it. I was like, oh, right, duh. But we, are always told, oh, you just have to look in the mirror and love yourself. And it's like, first of all, that's kind of weird and a little crazy. There's days where I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, I'm a badass. And there's days where I'm like, oh my God, I need to brush my hair. So it's not that simple. It's, when you're in love with someone and you love someone, you're constantly doing things for that person to help them feel loved. And you're giving them things that they love, that make them feel good. And it's just doing that with yourself. And it literally changed my life. And if you practice it every day, it will change yours.
How does it also, by the way, which I loved, because I hear that too, like, oh, you just got to love yourself and the same thing. But when you put it like that, that is when you feel good and you feel like you're best and you're really, in tune with your life. Another thing you talk to about is that, one thing, isn't that every woman's issue? We fall for the men who don't treat us how we should be treated instead of the ones who want to put us on a pedestal and give us the world. So how does now you having the self-love help you make better choices in dating or men, or affect how you choose?
Such an interesting question for what's currently going on in my life.
Yes, give us the juice.
It's honestly, you have to, I don't regret my marriage. I don't regret my relationship with Javier. It all taught me so much. Those 3 months, by the way, because this whole situation in this book, including me writing the book, happened in a span of 3 months. Like the divorce, the relationship, the Europe trip, 3 months. I learned more in those 3 months than I have in my entire life. And so I can't, you have to date those people. Not that I think I don't consider Javier a bad person at all. My ex is a little different, but whatever. But you have to date all of those people, so when you do find someone that is just completely the right one, that does put you on that pedestal, that does, fulfill all of those wells within you, that you can recognize that and be, it's like the same thing as you have to experience the good to appreciate the bad. So I think as far as the self-love, it's really made me more confident in being like, you have to be a very special person to enter what I've got going on. And that's like female, male, friend, boyfriend, anybody, because I value my energy more. And for me to give that to someone, you have to have something to give back to me, and you got to be real freaking cool for me to want to like book some time out for you. Because I put so much into my relationships and my friendships.
Another thing I want to bring up is you talk about intuition in there.
Yeah.
And you had intuition that in Barcelona, something big or amazing, something was going to happen there.
Yeah.
Talk about how you like have learned to follow that intuition or listen to that intuition more.
Yeah. I think a lot of examples on that trip, Barcelona being one. I think there was definitely a time where I remember saying to one of my best friends in the book, I just feel like Javier is going to do this, and then like literally 10 minutes later that happened. So I think it's become an ongoing practice for me to really listen to the intuition and not hear it and disregard it because it wasn't what I wanted to hear, if that makes sense. So when it comes up and I hear it loud and clear, even if it's not what I was hoping for, I need to be like, oh, okay, that's something I need to address and look at. And I was spot on about Barcelona. Like Barcelona was the first place where I felt like I healed a little bit. And the people that I met there and the experiences that I had there were so incredible. It really, my heart just felt at home there.
Well, I love, again, how you were really vulnerable in the book. And even when you're talking about, there's one point where you're talking about, hookups and things like that. And you said, that people reading might maybe judging you.
Yeah.
So was there ever a time that you felt, oh, maybe I should censor myself? Or were you just always like, you know what, this is what it's going to be?
So my mom read the book the first time and was like, babe, are you sure you don't either want to change your name or like leave this part out? Or yeah, a lot of people were like, well, you could edit this. And it's like, yeah, I could, but I chose to put everything. I mean, I embellished nothing in this book. Like there's no need to like try and create more dramatic effect because I have enough of that as it is. It's literally exactly how everything happened. And I chose to do that because I wanted people to see my mistakes, to see my wins, to see my process, and see how broken someone can be and how freaking incredible the other side can be. Because there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's usually more magical than you could ever imagine. And yeah, I mean, of course, there's been, like, I could get slut-shamed. I could, be judged for this decision that I made. But if I've been able to reach people and help heal people and give people a new perspective on things and really touch them, then, like, go ahead and judge me for some stuff that I've done. Like, I mean, really the pros and cons don't even outweigh each other at all.
Yeah, and I think for your audience, for me, it was so refreshing. It was so refreshing to hear other people make some decisions that maybe I may have made it, or looked back and been like, I probably wouldn't want everybody knowing that I did that.
And I really did think, I was like, it's only been out for 2 weeks, but I really did think I was going to get some pushback instantly on some of the things, but I have been so blown away of all the messages I've received. Just like, this book changed my life. Like, this really, like, I felt like you were writing about me. I left a relationship because I read some of the stuff in here. I mended relationship, like, incredible messages in the first 2 weeks that it's been out. And it's been so, like, validating for me to be like, okay, this is why I put all my shit on the table. And it's really, really rewarding.
How has what else has happened in these 2 weeks since it's been out?
It's been kind of a whirlwind. I feel like I haven't put my phone down since it happened. But it's been amazing. I've gotten a lot of, like I said, a lot of messages from men, which I wasn't expecting. And a lot of people messaging me saying, oh my God, I read this in a day, or I read this in 2 days. You've totally ruined my weekend. I canceled all my plans, which is so great. And that just, it's an easy read, and how much people are loving it. And it's been really fulfilling. And
was this your first book?
Oh yeah. I'm not an author. Yeah. Like, I grew up as an actress. I then transitioned into directing, so I do both. But the only thing I had ever written was 2 films that I did. And obviously films are completely different than a book. And I had no idea how to write a book. I didn't Google how to write a book. I literally just opened my journal and was like, chapter 1. And it literally was almost like I channeled it. It just came out of me. It always helped that I was writing about stuff I was literally experiencing. And it just so happened that what I was experiencing was a ridiculous story.
What was the process then when you came back from having it finished or you finished the writing on your trip to getting it published and out?
It's a long process. So I finished it when I came home, transferred it all into my computer. My manager shopped it to some publishers. The ones that we kind of were interested in wanted to change and tone down a lot of it, and that just didn't feel authentic to me. And so I decided to self-publish it, which is like a whole different journey. I luckily had a really amazing mentor that walked me through some of that process, and I hired an editor, and she helped me kind of like refine it and more so just not change anything, but cut out stuff that I didn't necessarily need. We cut about 15,000 words when she came on to help me. And it was mostly, she was just like, Gabrielle, nobody needs to hear like all these things that you were eating or all these things that you were seeing. I was like, but they were so good. And just like extra, travel log type stuff that, and when I cut that back, I was able to then go back and really kind of expand on some of the more meaty healing stuff. A lot of which that I was still going through. So the fact that the edit process was about a year and a half, a little less, allowed me to then go back and write about beliefs and realizations that I had even up until 2019. So it really all happened exactly how it was supposed to.
How? So we have to ask.
Yeah.
What is the status with Javier now?
The status with Javier, we are in each other's lives, and he's been incredibly supportive of the book. He knew I was writing it on the trip. He knew after. He and his family actually signed a release for me because there's so many, details and messages from them included. And him and his mother are two of the most beautifully amazing souls I have ever met. And I hold that whole family in a very high regard and respect them a lot. I don't think I could have released this and done this without their blessing and support. So I think because we were such a big part of each other's lives, and I sent him on such a healing journey that changed his life, and he sent me on mine, and it was really the catalyst that did all that. I think we're always going to be kind of connected in a soul way. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you and his mom too, because you guys had such great interaction.
Oh yeah, I went to dinner with his mom the other night. She's lovely, and I've never felt so connected to a maternal mother other than mine so quickly, and she's just lovely.
Sometimes I agree with you. I'm always, everything happens for a reason too, and it's
Big time.
even if it's not forever, to have those people come into your life and have that connection that you had, you just have to.
And because it really showed me what I won't settle for less. Like I don't ever not want to feel that level. And it also taught me about what I don't want in someone. There are a lot of things about him that I don't want in a partner. I don't want someone that is not going to be able to handle certain trials that come up in a relationship, that won't be able to like stay and fight through that. So while he taught me a lot about how I want to feel and like the passion that I want in a relationship, he also taught me a lot of things that I don't want. And that was huge for me to learn all that going forward.
What do you think? Will there be more books in your future?
I keep getting asked that. Yeah, I definitely have the material for book 2. I have the whole outline I can see very clearly. I think this has been so newly released that I've been like kind of just riding this wave and like seeing how this is received. And I also would have to talk to a few people to make sure everyone was okay with a book 2. I feel like this first one, everybody was kind of like, oh, okay, I got to give it to her, like just let her have it. But number 2 would be asking a lot. So yes, it's definitely a possibility. I have no idea when. The mental capacity of like sitting down to write another one right now is not somewhere I'm at. But yeah, it's definitely a strong possibility.
And how different do you think you are even now, months later, to the woman who started this journey?
Oh my God. I came back from Europe a different human in all the best ways, but I still had a lot of growing to do and healing to do when I came home. I mean, I didn't come home and was like, oh, I'm fine. I'm like totally like great. Let's go be wonderful. It was not the case. And that was really hard for me because I wanted this Europe trip to like fix myself. And there was a lot of healing that I still had to do when I came home. That being said, I've done a lot of serious work on myself because I was so aware of certain things that I now needed to address that now I'm really a completely different person. So it like built on top of that, but Europe was definitely the catalyst that started it.
So being that you're an actor as well, if this ever turned in, would you like to see this go into a film?
So it's being pitched around as a TV show. I think it's way too much information to pack into one film. I see it as like a limited series, bingeable, like 10 episode thing. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely, you can tell like when you read it, it's almost meant for the screen. I don't want to play myself. I think I want to direct. I would definitely do like a fun cameo, like one of the people that I meet on the trip. But I don't by any means want to play myself in this. Like I lived it and then I wrote it. I'm good being behind the camera and making sure that it's done justice.
Let's talk a little bit more to let people know more about what you do. So you are actor, writer, and director.
Yeah, I know. It's weird that I have to say writer now. Yeah, so I grew up as an actress. My mom and dad both were, in the industry. My mom still is. She's been working for over 45 years. And I've grown up as an actress. That was kind of like my thing. And then 2 years ago, I started directing. I did my first film called It Happened Again Last Night that went to festivals and ended up winning 16 awards. And it was LGBTQ and domestic violence related and a really powerful piece. And then I just directed my second film that stars my mom, Dee Wallace, and Amy Smart. So we're just sending that to festivals now. And I'm in development to direct my feator.
Lots of stuff.
Yeah, all the stuff.
Yeah, how was it directing your mom?
It was fun. She was weirdly nervous. And she's, a movie star in her own right. So it was really cute to see her show up and be like nervous to do a good job. But I've also like heard her talk in interviews, and she's really just mostly proud because she felt like she was working for, one of any of the directors that she normally works for, and that gave her a really big sense of pride. She was also playing a role that she's not used to doing. She's normally this like mom with this big heart and this like giant love. And it was a lawyer that was just like fast talking and, not like legal jargon. And she was just like, oh my God. But she did a great job, as she always does.
So your mom is Dee Wallace, who was also the mother in E.T. and a lot of Scream Queen stuff.
Yeah.
But you also, looking up your IMDb, have done a lot of thrillers and zombie stuff yourself.
Yeah, I've done my share of horror, and it's a great genre, and I wouldn't say that I gravitate towards any genre. I love drama. I've done a couple comedies now that's been so much fun. But horror fans are great, and so as long as it's a good script, I will always be up for a good horror film. I do turn down about one a month because I don't think the material's where it needs to be. There's so much shitty horror out there right now. Sorry. But yeah, so it's always a fun genre to play in.
So where can be like any upcoming projects soon that people will be able to see you in, or ways they can follow you?
Yeah, so I just finished a film called Await the Dawn, which is a horror sci-fi film with Josh Server, and that should be out either late this year or early next year. I'm in development for the film that I'm going to direct, which is based on a best-selling book, but that's very far from being like on the screen for people to see. And my mom and I are actually in development for a feature film where we're going to play mother-daughter for the first time, which will be fun. And it's a really great script. So we're excited about that. As far as keeping up with me, I'm on every social platform at Gabrielle Stone, and the book is at Eat Pray FML.
And the book, is it also on Amazon?
Yes,
as well?
It's exclusively on Amazon, paperback and ebook. I'm partial to the paperback because you can like hold it and it's a ton of fun, but whatever, that's just me. And I've also gotten a lot of messages from people that are reading the paperback and they're like, oh my God, every time I get to something that you post on Instagram, I go and I scroll down your Instagram and I try and figure out who's who. And I'm like, oh my God, God, there's this and there's this, which I think is so fun.
I totally did the same thing. Like in preparing for this, I read it all, and then I was like, oh, wait, I wonder, because you were saying you posted. I'm like, I know I won't be able to see the stories, but I'm wondering.
Yep.
And it was really fun to do that. And I think we showed a few of those while we were talking here today.
Yeah.
But it was fun to put the faces with the maybe fake names. But
Yep.
you know.
I love it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, before we wrap up, like any last advice for, it could be anything, either any like love relationship advice or advice for people wanting to get their books published. Any last words of wisdom?
Love relationship advice. They're like, not after that book. No, I think I wrote this book so people can relate and have fun and laugh and cry and heal and discover things about themselves. And I think every person that reads it is going to get something different out of it. But I really hope that people that have gone through or are going through any of the stuff that I have, that they know somewhere inside of them that that light at the end of the tunnel when they come out the other side is going to be so much better than they ever could have imagined. So as dark and dim as it looks right now, it's going to be so amazing when you get there, and everything truly happens for a reason.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so very much
You're
for coming
so
in and taking the
welcome.
time. Love the book. Everybody, go get it. Go get it. It's so good. You'll definitely just enjoy it.
Yay.
So,
And if people pick it up and read it, I would love to hear your thoughts and responses. So either DM me at Gabrielle Stone or hashtag EatPrayFML and tag the book so I can share it. And I love hearing what people think. So
awesome. Well, I can't wait till book number 2 eventually, or the series on Netflix.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
You're so
Appreciate
welcome.
it. Thank you guys so much. That wraps up another week here. We'll see you again next Tuesday. Have a great week.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or